Michael Bane, and welcome to Your Best Defense. If you remember earlier in the year, we did a series of roundtables, the Best Defense Survival Roundtables on the pandemic. Of course, it featured Mike Seeklander, Michael Janich, Rob Pincus, Dr. William April, and they were very well received. And we always intended to go forward a little to talk more about issues based on best defense survival. But what we didn't expect was for the country to catch on fire. What we didn't expect was an unprecedented level of, for lack of a better word, I'm going to be saying domestic terrorism. There's a difference between peaceful protest and burning down a car dealership. And so what we're going to do going forward is maybe once, twice a month, we're going to reach out to members of the Best Defense team, and we're going to talk about some specific issues. So today, joining us is Mike Seeklander, of course, who you're familiar with, and someone you may not know as well, Cecil Burch. Cecil, a lifelong martial artist, a member of the ShivWorks Collective that has done quite literally landmark work over the last 7, 8, 10 years on self-defense. He's also one of the very early lifelong martial artists who suddenly said, wow, guns, you know, it could enter into this self-defense stuff. So Cecil reached out to Colonel Jeff Cooper very early in the day. So thank you very much, Cecil, for joining us. And what I would like to talk about today, you saw the situation in Seattle, the pickup truck situation, where we have an individual, he tries to be a good Samaritan, and eventually he is pulled out of his truck, put to the ground, beaten literally within an inch of his life. We see organizations whose strategy is to block the road and attack the drivers, something we probably haven't seen before, or at least very, very rarely. So Seek, your first thoughts here. I've asked you guys to think this through. Your first thoughts on this. We all know, let's go with the obvious first. Run through that just so people understand where we are.
Sure. So here's the obvious is, in the U.S., we wouldn't necessarily think this is going to happen to us. But in other countries, from criminal or terrorist enterprises, you know, folks who've been attacked in vehicles for a long, long time. That's something that we can learn from. That's the good news. The bad news is it's a super complex environment. Like, fighting in or around a vehicle is super complex, whether you stay in the car or you get out of the car, whether you utilize the vehicle as a weapon or not. Those are all things that we need to think about. And one of the things that we discussed, you know, pre-show was, you know, awareness and avoidance. Granted, I'll say the line again, be aware of what's around you, be aware of the fact that there might be riots downtown, don't drive through downtown, and if so, avoid those circumstances. But I think we need to accept the fact that we can't avoid this one. You know, in a circumstance, we've turned the corner and there's the crowd, and now we're stuck in the crowd. What do we do then? And the first thing that I would want the viewer, listener to think about is, you need to have some sort of plan, right? I can't escape and avoid this situation. I need to have a plan. If someone's going to kick up the front door right now, I need to figure out what I'm going to do, which is going to, you know, bring me to my skill level. What's my training? What have I practiced? What have I visualized? What have I mentally rehearsed? My tools, what do I have near me or around me or on me? And then what's my skill level with those tools? Because if you think about it for a second, you know, you're in a weapon, you're already in a vehicle, you are certainly in something that can help keep you safe if you learn how to utilize it properly. We'll talk about the details here in just a second, but the general thing that I want to throw out there first is, have some sort of plan. You know, Mike Janich used to say, have a plan, work your plan. That was his line on the Best Defense. Hey, if you're in a vehicle a lot, which we all are every single day, and we know these things are happening, have a plan and be prepared to work your plan. And we'll talk about the planning steps here in just a second.
Cecil, you are a master of close-in fighting. It's something that you guys have worked on for a long time. And I know you've also worked on vehicle situations. Where are you on this?
Again, like Mike said, you need to think about this ahead of time. There needs to be some thought process into how you would potentially handle this kind of stuff. You know, I always start my seminars with this idea of we're going to start at worst case scenario, you know, a plausible worst case scenario, not ninjas dropping out of the ceiling or, you know, Red Dawn, Cuban paratroopers, you know, dropping out of the sky, but, you know, realistic stuff. You know, you look at the newspapers, you can see what, you know, video, you can watch videos, whatever, you can see what's going on and you go, all right, ideally we don't let that happen. Okay. But it can happen. It can happen to us. So we better start at that and start building a skill set that we know we can rely on if everything goes against us, rather than plan on everything going our way. And then when it doesn't, because it never does, right? The first rule of military tactics is no plan survives contact with the enemy, right? So you don't want to realize that at that moment. You kind of want to already have that up front, you know, like you know, no football game or no football play ever looks like the way it's sketched out, and not one player ever would assume it is. They're going to go, okay, this is the general idea of what we need to do, but we still have to practice it, and we have to be ready for stuff going sideways. But you have to do that ahead of time and think about, and here's the other thing too, is what is your particular context, right? Some people, you know, if you live in, say, New York City or Boston, maybe you're not in a vehicle that often. Maybe most of your time you're in public transport. But if you live in the West, if you live in Arizona where I am, I mean, we grew up driving a car, you know, California, you know, Oklahoma, I know Tulsa. That's a pretty spread out, flat place. You're going to drive to get everywhere. So you have to think, how much more time are you going to be in a car? Well, for me, I spend a lot of time in the car. So I better be thinking about these things and game planning it. Not like this is what I'm going to do, but hey, here are things I need to look for, and can I deal with it if it does? Not if this, then that, but hey, if this, what can happen? But it has to be done ahead of time.
And that's a critical point. I mean, all of us have been involved in, I guess, for lack of a better word, again, self-defense for a long time. We did some of these scenarios in the best defense and when we were filming, but in each case, I definitely recall standing there and saying, this is really unlikely. This is the first time we've been in a situation where unlikely has now flipped over into a standard tactic of the aggressor. But we've always said, though, and I've heard all three of us say, and everybody involved in best defense, that the threat always changes. And when the threat changes, responses have to change. When responses change, training has to change. So we don't have best practices here. We have to actually define what those things are. Mr. Seeklander?
Well, you know, and I think we can do that. So let's define some of those things. Let's talk about some practical principles people might consider. And we learned a lot of this testing things out for the best defense. I've learned this from some military guys that work overseas a lot, some contractors that have been in really scary situations, and they brought that back to some of my training classes. Number one, as a police officer, one of the first things I learned was when I stopped at a house on a call, my seatbelt was off. Right? Now, I'm not advocating you don't wear seatbelts. I believe in them. I think they save lives. But I'm telling you, when that vehicle is coming to a stop, the seatbelt needs to be off. So if you find yourself in a situation that you can't get out of, you can't fight with the seatbelt on. You might have to get to the position in the car where you're up on the seat to an extent. We may talk about those details. Or you may have the possibility of exiting the vehicle. I'm not going to recommend that right away. But the point is, get the seatbelt off, right? You can't fight with the seatbelt on. So that's number one. Number two, anytime you drive your car, and you can practice this today, tomorrow, wherever you drive next, make sure you can see the bumper and underneath the car in front of you. That simply gets you in the habit of having the distance to move your car, right? If you can move your car and reposition it, back it up, drive it forward, turn left, turn right, you can escape and avoid most of these circumstances. Matter of fact, you might escape this situation a block down the road before you drive into the crowd if you have the room to do so. You might have to break that one-way illegal, position, but hey, in that case, you're doing it to save your life or your family members' lives. And then from there, start to think about what you have at your disposal. Well, no matter what, you're in a car, right? So you have a car at your disposal. It is a weapon. What level of force we use that weapon is going to be dictated by the circumstances, right? We talked about crowds climbing on cars or whatever else, and I'm not advocating that immediately we see a crowd of people, we honk our horn and we mow them over. No, not like that, but you do your very best. Lights, flashers, horn, maybe your hands, do the things that people will video and will notify the crowd that you want to get out of that area, right? And then they determine whether or not you use the vehicle as a weapon. Now, does it have to be a lethal weapon right away? Well, it probably is no matter what, but just consider yourself using that vehicle slower, moving back and forth, because what you're going to do is you're going to communicate to that crowd that that's not the vehicle they need to take that day. And if they're going to do so, they're going to risk getting, a tire on the foot or getting bumped or whatever else. And obviously you're only going to do this in a situation where they will not let you pass through. They've already communicated their intention to an extent, and you've already seen it happen and play out on TV. We know what can happen. So we have all those facts and circumstances we can testify to in court. So from a legal perspective, I'm not going to let someone get on my vehicle, and I certainly don't want to let someone breach my vehicle. And certainly that would be the last thing is, inside the vehicle, do we know how to fight in the vehicle? If we're armed with a firearm, do we know how to access a firearm? If we have a passenger in the car, do we know how to access the firearm and get the passenger out of the way? And there's some techniques we can talk about later on. But from a basic principle standpoint, start thinking about those things. And the last thing I want to get you thinking about is, are the people assaulting the car? Because now they're assaulting your vehicle. They did not let you pass. Are they armed or unarmed? And that may dictate my response as well. If they're armed, if you point a fire in my vehicle and you're not a member of law enforcement or security or some legal entity, then it's go time, right? I'm going to use the car as a weapon if I can. I'm going to run you over. So think about all of those things. But once again, if you don't pre-think this stuff and plan it and practice it, maybe even communicate it to your family members, it's not going to happen.
Cecil, I'd like you to expand a little on that from your own basis as an expert, as a master in close-in fighting, but also as a lifelong martial artist with that kinesthetic sense of movement. You know how to move your body, you know how to fight, but now you're in a steel box and there's maybe 5, 10, 15, 20 people beating on that steel box, and they may be beating on it with sticks, with hammers, with whatever. How does that change everything for you?
Well, if let's move on to the point where you can't move the car for whatever reason, they've already blocked it. It's going to be very difficult. So at that point, and you've got all these people around you and they're starting to beat on the window, you have to be thinking about those things of, can I fight from here? Is it possible? What are the actions that are going to best work in this context? How do I move to deal with those situations? Where is the threat coming from? Is it my driver's side window? Is it the front? Is it the back? Is it the passenger side window? Where are those things? And how do I change and move body in relation to this? I remember years ago, 2006, 2007, Craig Douglas started really getting heavy into the idea of how do you fight inside a car? Hands-on, not just shooting, but hands-on. And I remember he would grab me and we'd just go in a beater car, and essentially we'd start sparring, right? It was just play. It was like, what can we do? And you start realizing that some things are good. I can press my feet against the door. I can press my feet against the dashboard. I can turn a little bit more differently. I can reach and grab the steering wheel and push over the steering wheel to change my orientation. But also things get in the way and I can't move quite as freely. And also there's things that might interfere. What we found was seat belts work really well like a gi in jiu-jitsu. It's really good to hold people, lock people down, and choke them. So if you're already seat belted in and somebody's just smashed in the window and they start reach in and they grab that, that lap seat, the harness seat belt, and they're starting to pull, you might already be halfway to being choked out before you even realize what's going on. So a lot of this has to be, again, well, what's the primary threat? What's the best way to deal with it? Well, and it becomes pretty similar to everything else that we've learned. I need to orient towards that threat. I need to square up towards that threat. Now, is the best answer at this moment hands? Is the best answer some other tool? Is the best answer, maybe I can go out the other side. Maybe they're all standing on reaching the the drive-through window, but there's nobody at my passenger door. And I got no family members with me. So maybe I can go out that way. But you have to, a lot of this is, you have to play with this and to do it. You have to get some training. You have to put practice in to actually think about this. If you've never tried to adjust yourself in the seat, even simply to turn to get a better shot out, you're not suddenly going to do it well in the heat of the moment. I'm sure Mike saw a lot of people in his classes do this. You get stuck. The steering wheel interferes with your arm movement, something where you think, oh yeah, I'm going to get my gun out and go. And all of a sudden you're like, hey, it didn't work the way I thought it should. So all this stuff needs to be, worked ahead of time. But really on a base level, we're still looking at the same principles that it would be if the guy's just standing in front of me. Right? There's certain things, there's certain framework and principles that aren't going to change. It's how we apply them in that, if I'm going to stand on a range and shoot, all those same principles apply. It's just now maybe I have to change the orientation. How I get to that orientation, I might have to do a little more work. But we're taking, it's all the skills we've already done in that classic on the mat or on the range. We just sort of, this 3-degree shift in application.
I think that's really important. And one of the things that occurred to me, Cecil, when you were talking is that one of the reasons that you train is so in a crisis situation, it's not necessarily a surprise to you. It would seem to me that having gone through vehicle training and things like that, boy, wouldn't it be easy to panic if you're in your vehicle and there are people beating on the side of it, and an Antifa website had links to Amazon on how to get glass breakers to break car glass. You've seen the use of skateboards, which is like, hey, I'm just a skateboard kid. A skateboard is a very heavy rock maple with heavy metal parts on it. It broke through every plate glass window it was swung at. It would be easy to panic in that situation, wouldn't it, Cecil? If you hadn't really thought this through. And your hands, you're caught up in the steering wheel.
Absolutely.
It's a panic, claustrophobic situation.
Any novel stimuli of anything tends to force the brain into almost a shutdown. A continuous feedback loop feeding on itself with no solution. It's just, oh, what's going on? I can't believe this is happening to me. Why me? Oh, God. None of that's going to help you. So instead, you have to be, oh, this is happening. Okay, I need to do this. And then, like you said, okay, even if you've trained, this is the dirty secret, right? This is the kind of thing that Mike and I will try to hide from everybody. Here's a dirty little secret. We'll train you really well. We'll help you get as good as possible. But guess what? Things still go wrong, right? There's still times when, I know Mike probably doesn't make mistakes. I do all the time. I'm rolling with some other black belt, or I'm on the shooting range and everything just falls apart on that day. The expert is not the guy who does everything perfectly. The expert is the guy who can go, oh, okay, I screwed that up. Now I will fix it by then doing this, and not dwelling on the fact that, oh, you made this horrible mistake and now this other guy has passed your guard and he's got neon belly on you. It's too, I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to be, how do I fix this problem? Or, oh, I just dropped 2 shots out of the eye box. Okay, well, don't beat yourself up. Next couple shots, trigger press, smooth, just think about the process. And training, seriously, training is the only way you can build that. You can talk to your blue in the face. You can have all the self-help, hypnosis stuff. It's not going to work. What's going to work is training, because then you figure out, okay, I screwed up. It's not a great day, but I can fix it.
Seeklander, your family's in the car. What does that change?
Oh, it changes a lot, right? Because now we don't have the ability to be as mobile inside the vehicle. We don't have the ability to shoot anywhere we want, because maybe we have passengers and people behind us. So now anywhere our muzzle direction goes, we need to be aware of where they are. And the scary thing about that is we don't necessarily have control. And that's probably one of the principles we should talk about. I should have mentioned that earlier. If you haven't come up with some sort of a plan based on some training, right? And you haven't communicated that plan to your family members, that's a problem, because I want my family members to do a specific thing. Maybe it's cover their heads, get to the center. Maybe it's cover their heads, get low on the floorboard in position, because that brick is coming at their window. But now I know what they're doing. My passenger, my daughter, son, wife, they need to understand what goes on. If I'm grabbing their head and bringing a gun over the top of their body, right? They need to understand that they don't want to get into that position. So family in the car changes everything. And it also changed the fact that now maybe I do have an escape alley and things are going really bad and I can't move the vehicle, and I can open the door and sprint like crazy 200 yards down that alley and get to someplace safe. Give up my vehicle. Because granted, legally and technically, unless I'm protecting my body, in most cases, I can't kill someone over my vehicle, right? As crazy as that sounds. But families in the car, no. Like Cecil mentioned earlier, potentially, that's the Alamo now. Now we don't lose it. We're fighting this, we're fighting this good fight. And it's funny that he mentioned earlier in terms of making mistakes and focusing on the process. I tell all my students, stop worrying about, good or bad or what you just did, good or bad. Focus on the process. And don't necessarily go slower. Like if you're shooting and you make a mistake, don't worry. The speed doesn't fix the process, only the process. The correct steps in the process fix that. And you have to train. You have to shoot from a vehicle. If you can, you have to try to fight from a vehicle. There are ways to do this if you truly want to learn this material. Don't end up on the floorboard with your head cranked up like this and someone's kneeing you inside of the face before you figure out that that's not a good position to get into, right? Don't wait till that happens, or whatever else. So you gotta, I know I went off on a tangent, you asked about family, but man, family makes it really scary, right? That's why I said it's a very complex self-defense environment.
In my discussions with my sweetie, one of the things I've said is that I'll give a lot of ground if I'm by myself. You want me to run off? You want me to give you, I've given a guy $20 to go away. No big deal. I didn't have to shoot him. That was a big plus for me. But Cecil, when do you go to the gun?
When you can? No, that's
Yeah.
sorry.
That's a fair point. No, that is actually a realistic point.
Well, I mean, the problem is people are going to take that the wrong way, because the common thing is I just go to the gun. I just get my gun out and shoot them there. Well, maybe legally you shouldn't. And more importantly, maybe you don't have the physical capability to do that at the moment. I teach, so I've got a pretty hard and fast rule I teach in my classes. You go to the gun when you have distance or you have physical control over the other person. That's it. There's no other time. Now, I could kind of add a slight one, and this is something Mike said on the pre-show, so I'm going to steal your thunder, Mike. The idea that if you should be driving the car, right? If that is your principal weapon, it's your weapon to defend yourself, it's how to escape. If that's what you should be doing, you don't get the gun out. Don't have a gun in your hand while you're trying to steer, right? Focus on that tool that's going to do the best thing. But if it's, all right, I am now in fear for my life or grave bodily harm or my loved ones, They've given me all the legal justification I need. Cool. Can I access the gun? Great. Okay. If I have distance or I have physical control. Now, here's where it gets really wonky is number one, I think too many people don't understand how close is too close. I think that's a really big problem in the community. I mean, everybody who's been doing defensive handgunning for very long, they all know the Tooler principle, right? I don't think most people get the implication that he's telling you it only takes 1.5 seconds for somebody to close 7 yards. That's a lot. 7 yards? Pace that out. And then think about it. I mean, if we saw that on the shooting range, right? If you're at a Seeklander class and he says, hey, I'm going to score you on this test and it's at 7 yards, you're going to look at it and go, damn, can we move that up to 3 yards? Right? Because 7 yards, you have to be pretty good. But a guy can close that in 1.5 seconds. And then we go, well, what's our best draw? Cold, on demand. Not when we've been on the range, not when we've been shooting a couple hundred rounds, but cold, on demand. What's your best draw, especially from concealment? Right? And then you start going, oh, wow. Maybe it takes me 1.7 seconds to get the gun out when everything's going my way. And the guy is literally right outside my window. Is that the time to go to the gun? Maybe not. Maybe, especially if the window's already being cracked, maybe I better establish some kind of physical control over that person before I go to the weapon. Have some kind of, in what I teach, we end up throwing around the term dominant positional control. And sometimes that's real nebulous, but just if I can exercise enough control over the other guy that I have enough time to get the gun out and deployed and I get rounds on target, that's all I need. That's, I don't have to have him locked down for 10 minutes, but I have to have some kind of control over that guy before that gun comes out.
That's a toughie, and we're sort of running out. I always forget how short 30 minutes actually is, but I want to throw this out there to both of you because once again, this is in you guys' wheelhouse. You guys are masters of this. In the particular situation where we saw the guy pulled out of his car, pushed to the ground, when he's sitting there on the ground, all I could think of was, dear God, you might want to protect your head. Seeklander, you want to jump in? Okay, this is worst case. You've screwed up. Your butt's on the ground outside. Where are you?
Yeah, you're in some trouble. And once again, the basic things we talk about, caging up, learning how to strike, being fit, those all apply. Mobility. Cecil and I both ground fight. He's much better than I am, but the bottom line is I'm going to take someone to the ground when it's to my advantage. It's not in my advantage when there's 7 people trying to pull me out of my car or they put me on the ground. My best position there is to get back up to my feet if possible. But, he mentioned some great things in terms of what the hand should be doing and people not recognizing distance. And I want to add to that, I've got a SIRT pistol here, obviously. It's not a talisman. Right? I'm not going to pull the gun out and then that crowd's going to disperse. We've seen that on video multiple times where an individual solves the gun at a time or tries to solve the problem with the gun at a time where it's not appropriate, where they probably should have still been driving, or fighting or using the vehicle or doing something else. It's not a talisman. People aren't going to run away. I've pointed live guns at people multiple times and they've complied sometimes. And sometimes they're like, what are you going to do? Shoot me? I've actually had that happen. So you need to be prepared to fight. Let's just say we're going to be fighting, that whether that means we're fighting with our hands or fighting with the vehicle, or maybe even potentially because the gun came out before we wanted it to, or it came out and then the fight closed in terms of the distance. I'm in a fight. I just saw a video of a guy the other day and he got his gun taken and beaten and I think either killed or almost killed. It was a scary deal. So anyways, but if you're out of the vehicle, you're on the ground, man, it's time to go for broke. I hope you have some sort of secondary weapons and some training, maybe an edge weapon or the ability to move, get up, cover your head and move, kick, do what you can, become that animal at that point in time, because that's your hope. Now, if you're already there, man, I'm sorry for you. And it might not just be because you didn't prepare and you didn't train, but maybe you are an innocent 80-year-old grandmother that wasn't strong enough to stop that process. Of course, once again, and I won't be too wordy here, we talk about the disparity of force a lot of times. You know, a smaller guy against 3 larger males, that may change their decision-making process to use lethal force. So if you're that 80-year-old grandmother and you're doing the slow bump and slide with your car and it's not working, it might be time to hit the gas. Because guess what? If they get in your vehicle, they are going to kill you. We've seen it happen. You don't need to theorize about it. It's fact. So use the car as a weapon.
Cecil, I know you saw the video out of Portland. I know you saw that guy sitting on the ground. What would you have told him if you could have reached out to him and say, dude, let me tell you how you need to stay alive right now? What would you have told him?
You know, like Mike said, it's hard, right? Multiple opponents just in general, on your feet or on the ground or standing, one's not any easier than the other. It's horrible. Anybody who's worked it will tell you it's a horrible situation. So, I mean, we can go, oh, do this or this or this. Here's techniques. Here's what I'd say. Above technique, it's concept. It's the single most important thing to do is stay conscious. You have to stay conscious. You have to protect the CPU. This has to continue to operate, because if it goes out, you are now at the mercy of that mob, that same mob that just smashed in your car, dragged you out. They're not suddenly going to go, oh, let's stop stomping on him because he went unconscious, right? I'm not going to trust to their good graces at that point. So whatever you do, if you don't know anything else, you don't have any skill set, you've made that mistake of not training it, protect this. However, okay, so protect the head and keep facing the threat. Okay, that's the best thing. Do not fetal up. Do not turn away. Do not go belly down. Keep looking at what's coming, because the human body has this weird ability to absorb a little more trauma if we know we're ready for it. Like if we see it coming, right? Every boxer will tell you the punch that knocks you out is the one you don't see coming. So, okay, it sucks. Oh man, they're stomping me. But at least if you see it, if I turn and all I feel is pain, it's going to be much worse. But whatever you do, however, wrap your head up, stick your head under the car, right? Your body might be outside, but get your head under the car so that, okay, they're going to stomp your ribs. They're going to kick your kidneys. They're going to break your legs. Yeah, but you know what? My CPU's still functioning, and at least I have a shot. Maybe at that point, I can get a weapon out. I can get a secondary weapon out. I can somehow scramble to my feet at that point. Something, as long as I am still conscious and I'm somewhat mobile, I've got a chance. So, because in a couple minutes, there's no way I can tell you. Mike can't tell you a technique that's going to do you any good. But if you just keep that concept of, hey, don't get knocked out, right? Keep this thing protected in whatever way you think best and work from there. At least you have a chance.
Well, guys, we are out of time here. I do want to thank both of you, Mike Seeklander, Cecil Burch. We will include links. And for the audience, what I would urge you more than anything else is go to their links, find out what you can about training with them or somebody else that they might recommend. And I want to just add on a personal note here. We lost our friend William April earlier this month, a tragic loss to all of us, and it broke our hearts. But in each case, the last thing that William expressed, I think, to all of us was that he didn't want the learning, he didn't want the knowledge to be lost. And what we're doing here is we're making sure the knowledge isn't lost, both because it's important for us to get that knowledge out and because it is, in fact, an homage to our friend. I am Michael Bane. This is Your Best Defense, and we'll have more coming soon.